We pulled out the tractor, dug the holes, put the T-posts in, make sure it's straight, tight, lined up. So it's those types of things where like it's a real skill set, but I don't ever want it to be diminished to where you all think that we're not approaching this from a mental strategy standpoint as well.
And what you said is true. When you're coming from a place where you're really connected with the land and the environment, it's different from when you're just coming in for the money. I also had an equipped contract for fencing last year. The guy that was going to do it found out how much money they were paid for. He wanted all of it. Well, it wasn't like that. It's for material and labor. And so I had to cancel the contract. I need everybody to put the fencing up, they had to cancel the contract.
Okay, let's move on. But you know we got you. You know that, right? And I want everybody else in here to know that we got you and that I'm not pushing you out, because I want to hear from at least 2 or 3 other people that I see in the room. And we'll start with you, dear.
Well, my question was kind of building on this conversation, kind of from a flip side perspective. And I'm wondering, and you all can speak to it as well, what reciprocity looks like to your participants, because something that I've experienced is that like I've worked on an elder's land before, and we had come to like cooperative terms where it's like, yes, I'm here, I'm working with you, but it's not like, I think we say it, but then in our actions, it becomes like, you're here for me, doing this project for me, and this is my land. And sometimes, like, yes, it is your land, but also, how am I supposed to see myself in the future of this project, right? And I think sometimes elders maybe unknowingly kind of take I don't want to say a selfish approach, right? But it's not necessarily a cooperative approach either.
Sometimes it's kind of come off as maybe self-serving or
so like
I'm trying to find a new terminology for this, but what I call it is plantation style urban agriculture.
Exactly.
It's basically where you have people that own land and assets, and they bring you in the maintenance of those assets.
Right.
They don't necessarily have the skill set or the knowledge to do the work, and that's not to disparage anybody, but it's also with the understanding of maybe a little bit too much of a top-down approach.
100%.
I'll let Charlie jump on that a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing, and I think for us, particularly as Black people, like we have to understand that some of our people inherited the ways of their person. You know what I mean? For better or for worse, unintended or intended. You know what I mean? Not to say everybody's to that degree, and at the same time, with agriculture in general, like we're really in unprecedented times in the sense of, when you look at the historical context, and there has been no equitable labor force. You know what I mean, in this country, right? It's always been predicated on slavery or indentured servitude or sharecropping, or you know what I mean. So what we really doing, trying to pay people livable wages and make sure that reciprocity is there, is we're on the forefront of that on certain levels. I'm not saying we're the only ones, or we're at the front of it, but it's a real thing. So I would say, I don't necessarily have the answer for you. I would just say, as a point of advice, anytime you enter into one of those situations or agreements, like a handshake agreement is cool, but it's good to put things in writing. Not to say it got more legally binding, but what that does is just holds both parties accountable. It helps manage expectations as to what you want to get out your experience and what they expected from you in return. If it makes sense for all parties, y'all can move with it for as long as it does make sense. Because sometimes it reaches a point where you might outgrow a situation, or a situation outgrow you.
For sure.
Or does it grow with you?
Give us that part. I know you have answers. Give us some projected vision for how these relationships should be developed.
Wow, okay.
You got it.
Great question, back at the question. I mean, for me personally, that's why I mentioned the cooperative model, right? Because that's the only thing that levels the playing field between a person who may own land or a person who may have capital and a person who just has labor. And I think you mentioned it perfectly. Like, there has never been a history, like never in history have people's true labor ever been like paid what it's truly worth in this place. Okay. And we're seeing that now all the way through the Farm Bill with subsidies down to how we operate in our own community. So I think we have to, and that's why I asked the question of reciprocity in general, right? Because it's been times where I wanted to stay on this land, I want to be here full time, but I also have bills that I need to pay. You know what I'm saying? So my reality automatically forces me to split my interest. And if you're not helping me secure my most basic needs, i.e. a place to sleep, right, without it feeling like I'm a landlord type of relationship, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of weird, you know? So I'm here giving my labor to you, but you can't abuse that, like, I don't got nowhere else to go, or like my labor is just not worth anything. So, yeah, the cooperative model would be my immediate response.
What I would say, I try to be as concise as possible, but some of us in this space are on assignments and working within your gifts. So the best way I would say is, do what you're supposed to do, and when it's done, go home. So sometimes we try to get super tied in with folks, we going to dinner and we trying to be friends and all that. It wasn't for that. I was supposed to put this fence up, fence up, go. Like it doesn't mean that I don't have love for this, I don't have love for them. But sometimes when we get too tied up with each other, trying to be friends or be overly friendly, that's when we run into problems in business. And especially in communities where we know that there have been some historic traumas and trust issues. So that's why I say sometimes, you know, you can't dance with everybody. Gotta do what you're supposed to do. Gotta go. You know, but as you're doing that, I would encourage you to start just building out a portfolio or a platform for your assets, because a lot of what you do is very similar to Gangsters to Growers in Atlanta. And I would love if you and Abby and us could meet up, go to Chicago and do something like that where we could all just scale this thing out, because that's really where I think our heart is collectively, is just getting out there into our kids, you know what I mean? We're about to be 40 next year. So it's like, before we make that last little trek up the hill, and make sure we have a good way of paying for it.
I say, that's
Watch this. I don't know. Let me say this first. I'm gonna give you something, but at least let me say this first. Good cop, good cop, bad cop. All right, go ahead and say it. Go ahead.
It's been privilege.
They're real.
I just want to say that this dynamic that the sister is speaking of it's not restricted just to elders now. It can come from anybody, age, race. Sure. Like I experienced it. It's folks in Atlanta who's from, I'm not going back to it because they got free work out of us because it was sponsored by another organization, and then when they finally had to pay, they just did us bad. You know what I mean? So it ain't no love lost. I just know for what we're trying to achieve collectively, we have to be real strategic when we place our energy.
Let me say this too. Tell them about your next